All right, we're going to talk about evolution, which is one of my favorite topics to talk about because it's just so interesting and we can ask so many questions about it. So, after this, feel free to ask anything that you'd like. But before we begin, I want you guys to be able to think about anything that has changed over time, right here. Anything that has changed over time, go ahead and think about them in your head. While you're doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and click next. My example here is radios. We've started with jukeboxes that sat in the 70s or maybe even before then. Even before with jukeboxes, we had these radios right here in the middle that people would just try and turn the knob to try and find the station to listen to before there were even TVs. Record players that some of your parents might have, all the way up to now what we have iHomes and wireless sound devices that help our TVs or help our connect to our phones. So anything that changes over time is something that evolves. So we're going to be talking about what it is and the terms for evolution and the background to evolution and how it was found. So on your notes somewhere on there, and I know I don't have a spot for you, but write that evolution is the change over time. And change happens in characteristics of a single population from one generation to the next. So this does not happen to individuals, not happen to individuals. All right, some of the terminology that I'm going to just fly through here, but we have variations, which is just differences among organisms or among a species. A species is one or more populations of individuals that we say can interbreed. You can't have a species of horse breeding with a donkey because those are two different breeds there, so they're not the same species. They have to be able to produce offspring and then speciation is the process where a brand new species is formed. We'll be talking about that as well. You guys know about alleles, which is a part on a chromosome or a single gene on a chromosome. And then lastly, frequency is how often it occurs over time. So the frequency of biology students passing their test increases when they study. We're talking about frequency there. All right, so to begin us off, how does evolution happen? So we're going to write these things down. I have them, but evolution happens in multiple ways. First and most prominently, natural selection, which is the one that you guys know, and you're going to write that one down. The next one is geographic separation or isolation. Then we have genetic drift, gene flow, which is already written for you. We have mutations can cause evolution, convergent versus divergent, and then anatomy and development, and lastly, the last one you're going to have to write down is molecular. So that is when evolution can happen. So starting off with natural selection, the part that I want you to write down is that natural selection is for individuals that are better fit for their environment, have a greater chance to survive and mate or reproduce. The better fit individuals, again here, are able to mate and reproduce. That is what natural selection is talking about. So, AKA, we talk about this as survival of the fittest. Only the fit people are going to survive. You don't have to write this part down, but the genetic traits of fit individuals become more common and more frequent over time, and we're going to get very repetitive for this natural selection part, but it's very, very important. The fit individuals who are surviving are going to become more common. So if it is more fit in our classroom to have the blonde hair over a long period of time, it'll be more common that there will be blonde people in this classroom. So what does it mean to be fit? Something that is fit is somebody that is better adapted or more likely to survive in the environment that we're in. So if blonde hair causes somebody to survive in this classroom better, then that person is better adapted for this environment, and that person is able to mate and reproduce more blonde-haired people. So that is what it means to be fit. The genetic traits of less fit individuals become less common over time. You're going to have to write that one down as well. All right, so recipe for natural selection. This is that all species have genetic variation. So natural selection can't occur if there's a species that does not have any genetic variation. If they're all the same, natural selection can't happen, because if everybody's the same, they're just going to produce the same babies every single time. So we have to be very different. The environment has to present challenges to survival. For example, a challenge to survival would be the ability to find or compete with food. Another one would be that there is a predator. If that does not happen, if there is no predator, there's no challenge, natural selection again can't happen. Organisms who are more fit leave more offspring. That is just common sense there. And then characteristics of fit individuals increase over time. So if the blonde hair is more fit in this classroom, then that person will increase, or that blonde hair will increase over time. So there's all species have, let's go back there. All species have genetic variation. We've just got differences in our species here. Presenting challenges. This is for droughts and floods and tornadoes. Those are challenges. Competition among food and within species, as well as what you're going to have to write down here is disease, but predation, disease, and parasitism. So those are challenges that are set for us. Individuals who are more fit for their environment than those who aren't. This person right over here, the sad little boy who has nobody to love him, is not the same as these guys. So that means there's genetic variations. But if he is not more fit than this person right here, he's going to leave less offspring, which means that the more brown ones are going to survive better. They're able to reproduce more. And then the characteristic or that trait of the fit individual is going to increase in that population. He's going to be the only one. So therefore, unfavored genes are pretty much going to be removed from the gene pool. Interesting thing here is that whenever we go, and I think I've told you guys this before, but whenever we as humans find a boyfriend or a girlfriend to kind of go out with in high school or whenever, even after high school, you are searching for somebody who you think subconsciously is going to give you good babies or good traits in your offspring. That is just an animalistic instinct that we have, that we search for somebody that gives us favorable genes. So no matter what, you're always searching for somebody who has better genes than you do, so that whenever you have a baby, your favorable genes are going to be passed along. So we want good genes, not bad genes. All right. So I'm going to skip that one for now. Another way to have evolution happen is not through natural selection now. We're talking about geographic isolation or separation. So when a population of something is separated due to a geographic something that prevents them from mating from one another. For example, right here is a picture of a earthquake that separated and caused water to go in between two lands, or in between the land here. What used to be all green Christmas tree looking things now are separated, and over time this side began growing a different colored tree because it was more suitable for their environment. That characteristic on this side was better fit for that side, and it caused them to all change over time. Now, this happened over a long time. It does not happen immediately. So this can be due to anything geographic. Here's an example here. We had these two types of squirrels. There's a very black, dark squirrel with a white spot in the middle, and then a very dark one. But 10,000 years ago, these tassel-eared squirrels was split by the Grand Canyon. Due to the isolation, they were not able to breed with each other anymore. They became what we call speciation, which is a new species of squirrel was formed because of this. And one group evolved on the north, which was flatter and slightly warmer, and the other one on the south, which caused two separate species. So we've got the Albert squirrel and now the kaibab squirrel. Another form, or your next form, is called genetic drift. And I know this is not on that page that you were just on. It's on the very back page because genetic drift and gene flow are very similar. So genetic drift is the change in allele frequency. So remember, we have our chromosome sitting right here, and just one spot on there is the gene, and that allele frequency changes due to chance. So that is the biggest thing here, due to chance. So this is just something that's random that happens. We call this the bottleneck effect. When a population is drastically decreased, or that allele is drastically decreased due to a natural disaster like a hurricane. So if we have a parent population right here full of, let's call these squirrels again, yellow and blue squirrels that are perfectly normal. Everybody is pretty much equal. A natural disaster happens where a tornado comes in and ruins the whole area. Well, that is a random chance that it does not matter who is in the way, it is still going to take it out. It's not going to pick out only the yellow ones or anything like that. So a tornado comes through. What we call a bottleneck effect is that random ones come out of the bottle, and the surviving individuals, again, are random, and therefore the next generation that formed, because there were more blue ones that survived just by chance, the next generation is not going to be equal. It's going to be more blue than yellow. So these genes are reduced so much that they can't make a comeback in their new population. Gene flow, very similar to genetic drift, and I don't want you guys to get these confused, so I want you to be able to compare them. But gene flow is when the allele frequency of a population is changed by individuals moving into or out of the population. So this one's not due to chance, but this one's due to migration, or somebody just choosing to move, to get up and go somewhere else. So we've got population 1 and 2. Brown and green beetles. These two green beetles thought it looked better over here, thought these brown beetles looked real good, so they wanted to mate with them. And over time, the population became a mix of brown and green beetles. That is just due to them moving. Another word for gene flow is migration, which I just said here. Coolest picture ever. If you were this fish, you'd be on top of the world probably. All right, last one I want to talk about today is called mutations. And mutations is obviously a change in your DNA. You're going to write this one down. A random mutation can happen to one individual in a population. So normally, whenever we talk about evolution, we're talking about a whole entire species. One individual does not change, but here in mutations, an individual can change. It can either increase the organism's chance of survival or being able to reproduce. It can decrease it, or it could just have no effect. So here are a couple of examples. One example is the giraffes that we just talked about. Random mutation, let's say this giraffe randomly got a mutation to make him taller. The chance of survival has increased his chance of survival because he was able to reach the taller trees. I have no idea what this is. It looks like maybe a dead giraffe? I don't know. Not my picture, but we're moving on. Random mutations can decrease. So we've got a frog here, a frog with an arm on the back of its back. Now, if the individual dies before it can reproduce, the mutation is not passed on to the next generation. So more than likely, this guy is not going to be flirted with by all the frog girls because he's got an arm on his back. Therefore, he will die before he can reproduce, and therefore the mutation will not be passed on. It looks like he's got a leg going backwards too, maybe. Sorry, frog. Lastly, random mutations could just not affect a population. This one does not affect it. This example is that the dark spots on pigs are just random. It is a mutation. Sorry, not frogs, but pigs are not supposed to have black spots. But even if they do get them, it does not hurt their chance of survival or their ability to reproduce because pigs just don't care.